And know me. You know that I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from my way. You search out my path and my laying down, and you are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hands upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit, or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle on the farthest limit of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and night wraps itself around me, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for the darkness is as light to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, Connie and I are coming to you via video because it seems that there was a little bit of a problem locating a preacher for Sunday, August 2nd. So Connie and I are substitutes today. Now, you know what a substitute is, don't you? There's a preacher that got up in front of a visiting congregation, and he explained that he was just a substitute that day. It's kind of like a window that gets knocked out, and you put a piece of plywood over it. The plywood is just a substitute. It's not the real thing. Well, afterward in the greeting line, a woman shook his hand and said, "Pastor, you weren't really a substitute today. You were a real pain." I'm waiting for the peals of laughter to die down before I continue. Some of you might not have even got that joke. That's okay. I'll explain it to you when we come out there. We are coming out in 2 weeks, folks. We hope to be with you in person on Sunday, August 16. Looking forward to that. We like to come out there every August, and I think it's going to work out this year. And hopefully then we'll have some updates as to medical conditions and what the schedule is and all that. So there's some exciting possibilities, actually, for the next little while. So hope to see you then. Connie is found a video of my birthday 6 years ago. Now, first of all, thank you all for singing happy birthday to me 2 weeks ago. That was really nice. It's a highlight of the day. 6 years ago, Connie also preached on my birthday. I was 64 years old that day, and Connie located the song When I'm 64 by the Beatles, purchased it for me for a gift, and played it on the jukebox. But because we don't have the copyrights to it, it's not going to play this morning. What's going to play instead is some kind of guitar solo, which is nice, but it's not the right song. But when Connie talks about being 64, that's the song she's talking about. This was recorded during COVID. Neither of us had had a haircut for a while, so Connie looks a little bit different. But I think when she comes out there with me in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to recognize us. Here she is with, I think, what is one of her finest sermons, and I'm glad that she's chosen to share it with you this morning. This is Keith Zehr for WZHR Radio, signing off.
Hello, this is Connie Zehr, pastor of Care and Nurture at Lowville Mennonite Church, and today is Keith's birthday. So I have decided I'm going to see if I can find a record on here that might be good to play for his birthday. Of course, I will still love you, even when you're 64. All of the records that he has collected, I was able to find one that he did not yet own and purchase it for him. So, happy birthday, dear. I hope you have a great day, and I still love you, even though you're 64.
And by the way, here is that ID bracelet that was around Keith's wrist in that cute baby picture. Before we were married in 1979, Keith was offered a job as a pastor at a small church in Grand Island, Nebraska. We were planning to work at Beaver Camp for the summer, and then we would let the congregation know of our plans during that time. While we were having lunch before the wedding, the women were in one room and the men in the other, just so we could have better conversation, I guess. His mother, Dolores Lehman Zehr, asked me if we had made a decision about the pastorate. I told her we had not. "You know," she said to me, "there is something very special about Keith." Of course I knew there was something very special about Keith. That was why I was marrying him. And then she proceeded to tell me this story. The family was living in Harrisonburg, Virginia at the time, while Mike was attending Eastern Mennonite College. Keith was 2 years old. His mother had always told him to stay out of the parking lot, but this particular day, she was coming home from shopping, and he was excited to see her, so he ran out to greet her. And he was shorter than the car, so she didn't see him. And she ran over him. A tire went across the chest, right like that. He was taken to the hospital and had a collapsed lung and was not expected to live through the night. Dolores told of praying over and over that he would be okay. She did not want to lose him. Keith's dad later told us that the nurses turned most of their attention to Dolores, thinking Keith would die anyway, and she would need more help and support. Then, early that morning, she realized something was wrong with the way she was praying. She prayed, "Yes, Lord, I want you to heal him, but the most important thing is that he live for you. If that is not to be, take him now." And she prayed instead that Keith would live for the Lord and that he would be used to share God's story with others. Later that day, his tongue inflated, and it was fine. He was fine. Well, except for this little knot he has right there on his chest, but never mind. She always expected at some point that Keith would be a pastor, whether it would be in Grand Island at that time or not. 5 months later, she passed away from breast cancer. I'm so glad that I got to hear the story from her before she died, and I believe that her prayer was answered and Keith has been used to share God's story. Now, when I tell the story, I always feel the need for some kind of a disclaimer. I struggle with the question of why bad things happen to people. I can't reconcile the contradiction of God answering Dolores' prayer and letting Keith live, only to let her die prematurely 20 years later. What's up with that? There were so many people praying for Dolores to be healed, and there are so many other children who die in car accidents. Some may say it was God's timing, and while there may be some truth to that, it sure sounds hollow when you are experiencing a loss. Why do we lose parents, or children, or friends when we feel it is much too soon for them to be taken? Why are some people born into any number of difficult circumstances and live horrific lives while I am so blessed? I don't know why bad things happen to people, but I do know we live in a fallen world and sometimes stuff happens. There are the laws of nature that come into play. We are not puppets. Our choices and actions often play a part in what happens in our lives, and we must deal with those consequences. But for every example of this, there is an example of someone for whom this is not true. Lung cancer is a consequence of many years of smoking, yet we know people who have never smoked a day in their life and have lung cancer, or smokers who live for years seemingly unaffected. And so we question. I once heard a college student say how nervous she was about her upcoming final boards. And someone responded, "The Bible says that God will give you the desires of your heart, and this is what you want, so you should be fine." Is it unbelieving to say, "You have worked and studied hard, so you should be fine"? I am not downplaying God's work in our lives by any means, but sometimes action is also required on our part. The Mennonite World Review that arrived just yesterday contains an article about Allison Alexander, author of the book Super Sick, Making Peace with Chronic Illness. Having a chronic illness challenged and deepened her faith. She says when you are in intense pain and you know God has the power to stop it but doesn't, it's difficult to wrap your mind around that. But by faith, she also knows that God is walking with her through this and cares for her. When I was young, there was a commercial on TV for Calgon bath oil beads. It showed a woman being bombarded by so many requests. Children were screaming at her for attention. The telephone rang. Someone was at the door. A pot boiled over on the stove. And on and on. She throws up her hands in the air and says, "Calgon, take me away!" And then she is transported to a quiet, relaxing bath without a care in the world, thanks to Calgon. I wondered then if God ever feels like that. He hears someone who prays for a weekend of beautiful weather for their wedding. The farmer next door is praying for a weekend of rain for crops that are parched. Or it's Super Bowl Sunday, and the fans of Kansas City and San Francisco are both fervently praying for a win. A few days ago, I got a call from a friend who needed to vent. She was having ongoing issues with a coworker, and several things had happened that morning to cause her anger and frustration. She asked for prayer to deal with her anger, and then we chatted for a bit. When I hung up, I said a quick prayer, because after all, I said I would, and then I went about my day, but it seemed all day long I could not get settled into what I was doing for some reason. I have a Pray-As-You-Go app on my iPad that has short meditations for each day, so at about 3 o'clock, I decided to listen to it in hopes that I could get myself centered a bit. The reading was on anger. I thought, that's interesting. She just talked about anger this morning, and now ways to deal with anger are being addressed. I again said a quick prayer for her and went about my afternoon. About an hour and a half later, I got a text from her thanking me for listening to her earlier and saying that she was able to have a conversation with that coworker just then without biting off the coworker's head. I told her about my reading and prayer and asked, just out of curiosity, when it happened. Her reply was, I had planned all day to talk with her tomorrow, but then out of the blue, about just an hour and a half ago, I realized my anger was gone and I could have a conversation with her. I remember feeling startled. I texted the coworker around 3:30 to see if she could talk, and then we talked for a while. I got goosebumps as I read her reply. Of course, God is all-powerful and can handle all of our requests without a Calgon bath. But we sometimes get hung up on the right way to pray. We feel that we are not using the right words, or that our words are going nowhere, or that our concerns are either too small for God to worry about or too big for God to handle. We worry that we don't pray often enough, or our prayer time isn't long enough. I believe there is power in prayer, but the power comes from the one who hears the prayer, not the words being said. Jesus teaches us how to pray in the Lord's Prayer, but we have also been led to believe that there's some sort of blueprint for the right way to pray. Maybe we should rethink some of what we have been told about this more formal prayer time. We can do it anywhere and at any time. Like Keith's mother, maybe we should think about what it is we are really asking. Is our prayer self-serving, only for ourselves? Who do we want to benefit from our prayers? Could I make more of an effort to say just a sentence or two for someone who comes to my mind at any time during the day? For every request I make, could I offer a prayer of thanksgiving? For every prayer I offer, could I give equal time to listen for what God is saying to me? Excuse me. I've titled this sermon The Inescapable God because that is what the heading is for, the lectionary passage from Psalm 139, 1-12. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I might make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light all around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. And so in the end, can it be enough that God wants to spend time with us, that he cares for us, that he knows us, and that he wants to hear from us? Blessings to you as you go about your week. And now, if you will excuse me, I must bake a birthday raspberry pie.